Serious question. Why don't we have a strategic maple syrup reserve down here, bro? Vermont's coming up in this world, dude. Canada's time at the top of the maple game is over. And I say this as a half Canadian. It's over. It's over.
Conspiracy theories are entering a dangerous...
Information is the oxygen of the democracy.
There's so much evidence out there that even if less than 1% is true, that would be enough to collapse the current paradigm and change the whole planet.
This shit is crazy. I started my morning by trying to make some content for Buyer. I quickly got distracted because I was looking at maple syrup and who owns this maple syrup that I'd found. And holy shit, the rabbit hole took me so many different places. And it took me to the maple syrup cartel that controls like 70% of the world's maple syrup production. And it took me to the great Canadian maple syrup heist. If you don't know, you're going to learn about it. It took me I did eventually make a piece of content. It's not really about Buyer, but I thought that we would share this crazy, hilarious story this afternoon, to give ourselves a little break from all the seriousness, but also to talk about fuck the government and fuck the monopolies and fuck the cartel. Yeah, it's a true story, dude. I'm not even kidding. And so we're just going to wind down a crazy rabbit hole for a bit. And then when we're done, we'll probably get to some other stuff too. And that'll be great. And we'll save the big CIA controls Japan deep dive for tomorrow for Free Speech Friday. How's that sound? How does that sound? Sound good? I hope it sounds good because that's what you pulled up for. That's what you pulled up to. We're going to keep it light. We're going to keep it fun. We're going to keep it informative, fact-based. And who knows where we'll go after the maple syrup mafia. Let's talk about maple syrup, dude. Because if you don't know, do you know how maple syrup is made, guys? Do you know how maple syrup is made? Maple syrup is made from tree sap, obviously. You just stick a little hole in your tree. You get out the sap. You process the sap. You boil it. You reduce it. You refine it to that good mapley sugar. None of that corn syrup bullshit. And the right trees for growing the right like maple syrup trees, they're not everywhere. They are actually super not everywhere. They are, here, let me pull this up. They're pretty condensed into Quebec, Canada. Quebec represents like 70 to 70. It's like 75% almost of Canada's maple syrup supply. Let me see if we can find one that includes, there is maple syrup supply in the northeastern states of the U.S. as well. It's branching out. And actually, climate change is shifting, apparently, the preferred habitat of these trees, giving more share to the United States, taking it away from Quebec. But we'll get to our stats in a minute. But like Quebec is producing something like, well, Canada is producing something like 90% of the global maple syrup supply. And Quebec is producing 75. Oh, sorry, flip that. Canada is producing 75% of the global supply. Quebec is producing like 90% of Canada's supply. And did you know that maple syrup is 200 times more valuable? Am I getting my shit wrong again? Is it 20 times? It's 20 times more valuable than oil. 200 would be crazy. That'd be like liquid gold. Maple syrup is 20 times more valuable than oil when you put it in the barrel. Like when you actually talk about that quantity. It's fucking expensive, as you know. That's why you're buying Aunt Jemima bullshit. Corn syrup. So, Canadians have a bit of a gold rush on their hands, right? Right? But here's the thing. When you are running a maple syrup farm, Some seasons are good and some seasons suck. And so trying to run a maple syrup farm, especially back in the day, is kind of a tough business because maybe your trees all fuck up this year and you don't get much maple syrup and you can't afford to water your trees or whatever the fuck. I don't know how you run a maple syrup farm. I'm only half Canadian. So back in the day, they had this great idea that they would start a cartel. What could go wrong? And they banded together and they created this semi-private, semi-government organization that we're going to get to that pooled them all together and created a strategic maple syrup reserve. No lie. So that in a bad year, they could tap the strategic reserve and there'd be enough maple syrup to go around and your store shelves wouldn't go dry. And it could kind of help balance out the whole industry so that farms could get by on lower seasons. Sounds good enough. At first, it was a cooperative concept with the assistance of the government. That didn't go so well. Now it is a fucking cartel with military level enforcement that is surveilling people's farms, sending armed security to watch the farmers, not to keep hoodlums out, to watch the farmers. And it's actually giving them quotas that they cannot exceed. And it's the only person you're allowed to sell to in Canada. So if you're a maple farmer in Canada now, well, in Quebec specifically, where most of Canada's supply comes from, you are only allowed to sell to this cartel in bulk. You can sell little bottles on your farm, but you still have to tell them about it, and you better not exceed your quota. Otherwise, you're only allowed to sell to the cartel. The cartel buys all the maple syrup. They give you quotas for how much you're allowed to make. Don't exceed them, or they'll fucking come for you. And then they put it all into the warehouses, into the strategic reserve, which we're going to look at. And they stash it, and then they sell it out on the market. And when they sell your syrup, then they pay you for it. They don't even fucking pay you when you sell it to them. You just give it to them for free. And then when they sell it, then they give you your money. But they take a cut off the top, obviously. And so if you produce 1,000 barrels this year, but they only sold 400 of them, you only get paid for 400 barrels this year. And you got to wait for the other barrels to sell before you get paid. They have not actually sold the whole year's supply since 2009. So maple syrup farmers up in Quebec, they're just getting paid whatever the cartel decides to out of their supply every year. It's this crazy industry that I had no idea. If you needed the SparkNotes version of this conversation, the SparkNotes version is buy Vermont maple syrup. Fuck Quebec. Fuck them. Fuck the government. Fuck them all. Fuck this cartel. Buy Vermont maple syrup. Buy American made. That's the SparkNotes. You can now go on about your lives, okay? But we're going to get to the great maple syrup heist, which is crazy. These dudes stole $25 million worth of maple syrup from the strategic reserve. They stole more than 1/10 of Canada's maple syrup strategic reserve, dog. Like Ocean's 11 style, no lie. It's crazy. This is such a weird story. But these are my favorite kinds of stories. These weird fucking true stories. And this is real. This is all real. I'll show you. Here, let me pull it up. You know how you know it's real? It has a Wikipedia page, baby. And you can go read about it for yourself. The Great Canadian Maple Syrup Heist. They literally gave it a name. Everywhere calls it the Great Canadian Maple Syrup Heist. And actually, I remember this. This wasn't that long ago. A bunch of reporting came out through the 2010s about it because it actually happened in 2011 to 2012. And then it took them a bunch of years to sort of like play it out and find the guys and catch them and prosecute them. They almost got away with it too, if it weren't for these meddling Canucks. So they stole nearly 3,000 tons of syrup, valued at 18.7 million Canadian dollars at the time. That's equal to 24.1 million Canadian dollars in 2023. So about worth 25 million Canadian dollars today. That's crazy, dude. I want you to just imagine if you had to, suppose you're like Danny Ocean in Ocean's 11, and Brad Pitt comes up to you and he's like, bro, I got this great opportunity, dude. I got this great opportunity, bro. I got the next score, dog. I got the next score. And you're like, all right, bro, what is it? Tell me the score. Tell me the score. And he's like, we're going to steal 1/10 of Canada's maple syrup, bro. We're going to fucking hit Canada for all they've got, bro. What goes through your mind? It's like, all right, hear me out. Maple syrup, dog. We're gonna steal maple syrup from the Canucks, dog. Even if they catch us, they're too nice. They won't do anything about it, dude. It's gonna be great. That's for real the plan. So now, imagine that's the plan. How do you steal 3,000 tons of syrup? How do you do it? With a hose? With an airplane? With a fucking freight train? How many trucks do you need to carry 3,000 tons? I don't even know how many. Whoa. Holy shit. Standard dump trucks carry 10 to 30 tons each. This job would require 100 to 300 dump trucks? Bro. Semi-trucks can haul 40 tons or more. So it would require 75 semi-trucks, more or less. Dude, that's crazy. This really happened. How did they do it? How did they do it, you might ask? They did it with fucking horses. I'm kidding. They didn't do it with horses. They did it with beavers. They got a bunch of Canadian beavers. They suited them up with knots, night vision goggles. And they went in under the cover of night. Fucking beavers, dude. No lie. Check it out. I'm lying, by the way. It's not beavers. And it's not these horses either. Oh, sorry. You good. You can't see because I was just scrolling through my tabs. It's horses. Right? So the plan. Brad Pitt came to you with the score. You're going to hit Canada for all their fucking maple, dude. You're going to steal the strategic maple syrup reserve of the Royal Mounted Canadian Air Force, whatever the fuck they call them. And you're like, great, good score, dog. Awesome idea. How are we going to do it? The answer, you're going to need an inside man, of course. An inside guy, of course. Fortunately, that's what they had. The value of maple syrup is roughly $1,300 a barrel. Holy shit. I haven't done the math on how many barrels that must be. If they stole like $20 million worth at $1,300 a barrel, that's a lot of fucking barrels. What is that, 2,000 barrels? 20,000 barrels? That's like 20,000 barrels of maple syrup? I'm not very smart. You got to double check my math here. They did not do it inside of a horse. 15,384 barrels, Mo? That shit's crazy, dude. Yeah, we got some mathematicians in the chat, dog. So, obviously, they didn't do it all at once. They did it over the course of a year. But before we can properly tell the story of the great Canadian maple syrup heist, I think we need to get a little bit of context about the strategic maple syrup reserve. And we should ask ourselves, why the fuck does Canada have a strategic maple syrup reserve and America doesn't? For real. Like real serious question. Why don't we have a strategic maple syrup reserve down here, bro? Vermont's coming up in this world, dude. Canada is time at the top of the maple game is over, and I say this as a half Canadian, it's over. It's over. Sell your stock. We're done with it. The time of Vermont maple syrup is here. And we're going to bring in Simon with his phenomenal accent to tell us a little bit about the Strategic Canadian Maple Syrup Reserve. Because the visuals, it's good to have visuals on these things.
The sticky situation. A shortage of labor and
Yes, chat, you are not the first motherfucker to think of the pun, a sticky situation, okay? Simon was way ahead of you.
skyrocketing demand for the precious product of Quebec's sugar maple forests was threatening the nation with a case of bland pancakes. That's right, thanks to the disruptions inherent in the COVID-19 pandemic,
Thanks,
the country's
Intuition
maple
Gen.
syrup supply was running low. The stakes couldn't have been higher, yet panic didn't
The
set in.
cakes couldn't have been
Canadian
higher. The cakes couldn't have been higher, Simon. Damn it. Come on. The flapjacks, Simon. The flapjacks.
you see, are always prepared when it comes to syrup. The Maple Syrup Mafia, a trade group of maple growers that cooperates to maintain the precious syrup supply, were able to step in, providing
See,
at
I'm
least
not making
25
this up.
million kilograms of sweet maple syrup to the nation's bottlers just in the nick of time, averting the crisis. This was thanks to the Canadian Strategic Maple Syrup Reserve, a privately held and heavily guarded
This is real footage, by the way. This is really how they're storing their maple syrup. It seems criminal, honestly. It should all be in giant casks, right? Like, what the fuck is this? This does not look like my maple syrup bottle.
compound in Laurierville, Quebec, that helps maple syrup producers maintain control of the syrup market.
So they like it's not like Fort Knox or like, you know, the nuclear plants. They don't like it's not like a CIA black site where they keep the location completely secret, but they kind of keep the locations of these things secret. They have secret warehouses all around the country, all around Quebec, where they stash their maple syrup in these warehouses, and it's like it's low key. It's low key.
For in Canada, he who controls the syrup controls breakfast, and he who controls breakfast apparently rules all. Syrup is to the Canadian national identity as cheese
That's
is
some
to
fake
the
ass
French.
syrup right
It
there.
is a
Fake
fact
syrup.
of
That's some
Canadian
fake ass
life,
syrup
and
right there.
One that they're
That's
proud
fake.
of. The maple leaf even adorns their national flag. First produced by Iroquois people long before the British and French colonized Canada, maple syrup played a key role in the establishment of Quebec. Initially,
Maple syrup played a key role in the establishment of Quebec. That is not a joke. That is not a lie. That's true history right there. It's crazy, dude. It's crazy how something like maple syrup can build an entire half French state. Your microdose is hitting right now, dude. Dude, I hope you got some syrup to wash that down. Shit's about to get crazy in here. So, the Strategic Maple Syrup Reserve is hoarded in these white barrels in these secret warehouses all across rural Quebec, just hidden. Thousands and thousands and thousands of barrels just stashed away at all times, which they extort from maple syrup farmers kind of at gunpoint, kind of literally at gunpoint, a little bit. And they just take it all and they set the price, just like OPEC, but way funnier. And so there's just these stashes of liquid gold just sitting around all across Quebec. Right? And suddenly the light goes off in Danny Ocean's mind. And he's like, oh my gosh, great score, bro. Great fucking score. So I need to find, I might just tell it to you from memory, honestly. It's literally called the International Strategic Reserve. Because I was thinking of finding the actual like documentation of the different pieces of this plan, of this heist. But it's kind of split across all these different articles. So maybe what we'll do is we'll just watch a little news report about it, and we'll talk shit about Canada while we do. Because it's kind of wild how this thing went down. Right? Are you thinking about how you're going to take 300 dump trucks of maple syrup from the Mounties. They'll be chasing you down on horseback. You're trying to drive away in 300 dump trucks. Good fucking luck, dude. Here. We'll pull up some visuals to paint this picture.
The most expensive heist in Canadian history didn't involve precious jewels or...
That's not true anymore. Now there's a gold heist that I think is worth more. That's a crazy story too. But back then, it was the most expensive heist in Canadian history.
cold hard cash. Instead, bandits made off with $18.7 million worth of sweet liquid gold. We're talking pure Canadian maple syrup here. None of that fake Aunt Jemima stuff.
So just imagine you're the guys that pulled this heist off, and you're like at the heist convention where all the heisters talk, and you're hanging out sipping martinis, you're in tuxedos, you're in fucking Paris, being all like Ocean's 11 and shit, and you're just talking about your scores, and bro's like, yeah, I stole the jewels, and the guy's like, oh, I stole that fancy diamond, and I stole that fucking famous painting, and you're like, bitch, I stole Canada's maple syrup. Like, how do you say that with a straight face, dude? It's like, so what brought you to the party? Oh, just I stole 10% of Canada's maple syrup strategic reserves. No big deal, bro. I just crippled an entire nation by stealing their syrup. No big deal. Yeah, that's a flex right there, dude. That's immediately the coolest guy at the party. Coolest guy at the party. And by the way, he's not wearing a tuxedo. He's wearing a fucking flannel, obviously.
Thieves made the Federation of Quebec maple syrup producers look like fools and nicked 12.5% of the organization's maple syrup reserves.
12.5%.
Canucks had to deal with a shortage of syrup. It was a tragedy worse than Team Canada losing to the Yanks in hockey.
This is obviously AI slop, but it's illustrative. It's helpful.
Cakes were dry and Tim Hortons couldn't sell maple dip donuts. Here's a look at the Great Canadian Maple Syrup Heist and the effort to recover the sweet liquid.
I said it.
The discovery may have been made in 2012, but the Great Canadian Maple Syrup Heist was a coordinated effort that began a year.
Those are real photos of the actual perps. True story.
Earlier. It's the Canuck version of Ocean's 11, and some people view the sticky bandits as heroes rather than criminals. The Federation of Maple Syrup Producers has been called a cartel, communist regime, and even a mafia. The government-sanctioned organization regulates the marketing and production of maple syrup in Quebec. Think of it as the OPEC of maple syrup. It's a fitting analogy, as pure maple syrup is actually more valuable than crude oil. The Federation controls the supply of authentic maple syrup around the world and keeps a massive supply of the sticky sweetener in a secure...
Dude. I just blew my own mind. Okay. You know olive oil? You know about olive oil, dude? You know about olive oil and how olive oil is controlled by the fucking mafia over in Italy? And how Italian olive oil, the real Italian olive oil, do you know how there's this huge fucking scandal where a bunch of it's fake? Where they dilute it, they like cut it with baking powder, baking soda, whatever you cut it with. And then you fucking sell fake ass olive oil, but you put your Italy stamp on it like, gotcha, bitch. Right? Do you know about that? Yo, Canada, where are you at, dude? You could be making a killing. Maybe they already are. What if this... pure speculation, obviously. But, dude, imagine if the Canadian Strategic Maple Syrup Reserve, if the Canadian Mafia was just diluting that shit, eh? That'd be crazy, dude. No one... I would know. But most people wouldn't know. America wouldn't know. How would you know? Eh? They could make so much fucking money if they cut this stuff by half. They'd just be like, no, like the trees changed. Climate changed. The climate changed. I don't know. The syrup changed. Whatever. They control 75% of the world's supply. I'm kidding, obviously. I mean, like, Vermont would know. Vermont would fucking know. They would get it. But, dude, it just... Anyways.
Warehouse outside of Quebec City in case maple syrup production is low in a particular year. Think of the warehouse as the Fort Knox of maple syrup. Because the Federation keeps a syrup reserve, the market is never flooded with a glut of syrup, nor is there ever a significant shortage. The total value of the...
And so what this has done is this has driven up the syrup prices. These motherfuckers are artificially inflating syrup prices by controlling the supply. That's for real. These assholes are the reason why you have to pay like $80 for a bottle of syrup. Yeah, if you're new, if you're just coming in here right now, we are talking about the great Canadian maple syrup heist. True story, not a clickbait title. Welcome to the show.
Federation's reserve can sometimes be worth as much as $185 million. Pro-Federation syrup producers say the Federation prevents suppliers from going bankrupt. But those who are critical of the Federation...
That's a fucking psyop. They don't help. Fuck them. Don't listen to those lies. That's a psyop.
Say they are struggling to make ends meet. The thieves responsible for the heist managed to steal a staggering 9,571...
There's our answer. 9,571 barrels. That's a lot of barrels, dude. It's about 45 Canadian dollars for a gallon. That's how you wind up with a $25 million maple syrup heist.
1 barrels of maple syrup from one of the Federation's warehouses outside of Montreal. That's nearly...
Yeah, chat, real quick. Chat, based on what you know so far, are the maple syrup bandits, are they heroes or are they villains? Are these maple syrup bandits heroes or villains? Because I'm just going to go out on a limb here and say that shit's fucking awesome. That's awesome. Call me an asshole. Am I the asshole? Because I think that's awesome. It's almost as cool as Stacy constantly gifting huge numbers of subs in the chat. Yeah, legends, right? Absolute legends. These guys are the fucking Robin Hoods of the North, dude. Robin Hood of the North up here. Stealing from the cartel, selling it back to the people.
3,000 tons of maple syrup worth $18.7 million Canadian. That's a lot of loonies. One of the thieves was in charge of the St. Louis de Blanford warehouse where the syrup was stored. So the theft was an inside job. Every successful heist needs a man on the inside. In total.
Sort of like if you wanted to steal nuclear technology from America and take it over to your country, you would need a man on the inside at NUMEC. But let's not get distracted.
12.5% of the Federation's maple syrup supply was stolen, and each barrel stolen was worth about $2,000 Canadian.
So imagine if someone stole 12.5% of OPEC's oil. Just imagine that. Imagine what that would do to the world, dude. This is like that bad, but worse because it's maple syrup.
The thieves almost got away with it too, as their pilfering wasn't discovered for over a year. So why didn't anybody notice the barrels were missing at first?
So I'm going to just cut in here real quick and steal this AI motherfucker's thunder. What they were doing is first they stole a few barrels out in the middle of the night, took them out of the warehouse and siphoned out all the maple syrup from the barrels. And then they were filling them back up with water and sending them back into the warehouse. So no one even knew. Then it worked so well, they did it again, and 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 again, and again. And eventually, they started to get lazy. And my understanding, I could be wrong in this. Maybe he'll clarify, maybe AI Bro will clarify for us. My understanding is that they got lazy, and they stopped filling them up with water. Big mistake. And then some motherfucker noticed.
Well, the thieves concocted a brilliant plan. They swapped out the barrels with ones that were nearly identical, right down to paint color and make, and filled many of them with water that was siphoned from a nearby creek. The thieves even slapped stickers on the barrels that perfectly matched those put on by the Federation of Quebec maple syrup producers. The stamps looked official, and at first glance, everything seemed right. Federation inspectors didn't catch on until some of the barrels started to rust.
Because imagine this, like you're Brad Pitt going to Danny Ocean with the plan here, and you're like, all right, we got the score. It's fucking maple syrup, dude. And Danny's like, dude, that's retarded. That's retarded, bro. And you're like, no, dude, get this. It's just sitting there, and it's just in a reserve. So they never even, they don't even use it. They don't even open it. It just sits there. So they can control the maple syrup prices. They might not even discover it for like 10 years, right? Because they're not even opening them. It's just maple syrup sitting there 20 times the price of oil, just so that they can control the price. So you're like, well, fuck you, bitch. Here's some water.
You see, maple syrup won't make metal rust, but water will. When the Federation inspectors dug deeper, they noticed that some of the barrels were actually empty, and one inspector almost fell to his death climbing a pile of barrels. If they were filled with syrup, they would have been much heavier and therefore stable enough to climb. In addition to swapping out the barrels of syrup for identical ones, the criminals also siphoned some of the syrup into entirely new barrels. What was left was water-filled knockoffs and empty original barrels. The thieves got greedy, and eventually swapping out every barrel became too time-consuming. The thieves transported the nicked syrup via tractor trailers.
They got greedy. They got greedy. Should have stuck to the plan, boys. Always stick to the plan.
And sold it to an exporter in New Brunswick. The exporter then sold the delicious confection on the black market. The syrup was supposed...
And yes, there is a maple syrup black market. That is a real thing. And it exists entirely outside of this heist. And that's where we're going to talk about the maple syrup mafia and how they'll fucking come and take your farm from you. And they'll post armed guards and charge you for them to watch you if you fucking sell your maple syrup onto the black market.
Supposed to be safe in Quebec, but in reality, it was being sold all over the world from Europe to Japan. The irate Federation of Quebec maple syrup producers notified police, and what ensued was an in-depth investigation involving numerous police forces and detectives. Finding missing maple syrup is not...
Dude, imagine your claim to fame. Imagine you're a detective that wanted your whole life to be a detective, and you finally get your big break and you're on the force and you're going to lead an investigation. And they're like, here you go, bud. And it's, hey, why don't you go look in the maple syrup they got taken, eh? And you're like, God damn it. God damn it. I joined the force to catch a murderer. And now I'm looking into the maple syrup cartel. Some motherfucker got stuck with that job. And they led a international manhunt to track these guys down and catch them. It's a true story. True story. So, let's talk about the QMPS. I just have to find the stats that I've got about the motherfuckers that did the wrong. They got on the bad side of the cartel. Have any of you guys seen the Dirty Money episode that's about this? There's apparently an episode of Dirty Money on Netflix that's all about maple syrup. That I have not seen, but it sounds like a good watch now. I might watch it now. Because there's a couple of people that have been fighting the cartel in the courts and stuff because they sold on the black market and got caught, and their stories are kind of crazy. Here, let me pull this one up. So, Quebec is a province in Canada, like a state. And if you live in Quebec and have a maple syrup farm, you are obliged to sell your stock directly to the FPAQ, the cartel, except for any single bottles that you sell directly from your farm. If you choose to sell directly to supermarkets, they take 12% commission off the top. Sorry, bitch. And so a black market has been growing as this cartel has gotten more and more cartel-y. And people that get caught selling into the black market, Grenier, Angele Grenier, Angele, it's French. She got fed up and sold her stock directly to a distributor in New Brunswick. This black market transaction attracted the attention of the police and the FPAQ, and they slapped her with a $500,000 fine. She appealed and brought her case all the way to the Supreme Court, where she lost. Or rather, they refused to hear it. But, oh, this article doesn't have it. But they will actually, if you get caught selling into the black market, because it's kind of like, how do you track all the maple syrup sales? You need like a whole maple syrup police just to police these maple syrup farmers. If you sell into the black market and get caught, they will fucking send armed security guards to your farm and charge you the bill to surveil you in your farm, to watch your trees and make sure that all that maple syrup goes to the cartel. True story. They'll also fine you. They'll take your fucking farm from you if you're messing around too hard. It's crazy up there, dude. It's like the ostrich story. Do you guys know about the ostrich farm? Do you guys know about the ostrich farm? Yeah, you guys know about the ostrich farm? Dude, the ostrich farm is so fucked up. They killed all the ostriches. They killed like 300 ostriches. It's fucking wild, dude. They got all afraid of bird flu. Here, I'll show you this just so you know it's real. Canadian government kills ostriches afflicted by H5N1 despite appeal from RFK Jr. They weren't afflicted with H5N1. Gunshots end months-long Canadian ostrich cull saga that captivated RFK Jr. This fight went on for a while, dude, and it was crazy. And what it was is that they detected like traces of bird flu at this ostrich farm in Canada. And they were like, sorry, you have to kill all of your ostriches now because the next COVID is going to break out. And the farmers were like, no, fuck you, dude. These are our ostriches, and they're living beings, and we're not going to kill them all. And then the Canadian government was like, yeah, you're going to fucking kill them all. And then you think it through, and you're like, suppose you're Brad Pitt and Danny Ocean, and you're talking about your ostriches, and you're like, how are we going to kill 300 ostriches, dude? These things are fucking dinosaurs. They run like as fast as a car. They're super dangerous. They're absolutely massive. They're huge. Ostriches are huge. And you're supposed to kill 300 of them. And then they hear one gunshot and they all fucking run to the hills. This is a true story. And eventually the Canadian government came in and shot all their ostriches because they detected a little trace of bird flu. Fucked up, dude. It's fucked up. Canada, I'm sorry, but you're cooked. You were cooked before Mark Carney took over, but you're super cooked now. Pretty conclusions? Thank you. Appreciate it. So we could go on. I started tracking down all these motherfuckers. I got really into this morning. Oh, that's not the only tab. I need my other tab because I wanted to know more about this cartel. I wanted to know like who's running this cartel, like who owns this cartel. Who works there? And do I still have it open? No, I don't still have it open. Board of directors? Dude, I gotta still have it open here somewhere. Right? Because their board of directors is sus as fuck. Origin story of FPAQ maple syrup mafia. FPAQ board of directors. No, FPAQ, bro. Structure? A democratic organization. Yeah. No, and it's all in French too. Because when I went to their board of directors, there it is. Because on their website, on most websites, when you look for it, you can find the board of directors of most companies. All right, FPAQ Canada board of directors. They won't even show us. Where are you? Quotas, maple production, sustainable development, our organization. Page not found. I was just looking at this page earlier today. But anyways, I got super into it earlier, and I had found their board of directors page, but it had no names. It was just their faces. And I was like, dude, could you guys be any fucking sketchier? Could you be any sketchier? And so no, this is, yeah. And so I started hunting them down with all my tools, face by face, finding all the places that they'd been and all the different things that they'd done and finding their names, like Benoit Quintal, who is the president of the Union of Maple Syrup Producers of Central du Quebec, which is the organization. They're the Mafia. He's the president. But I fortunately, I pulled myself out of that rabbit hole because that was going to take forever. And fuck these guys. Really? Like, fuck them. So we don't need to get into all those details. I think you guys get the gist of it. You guys understand. If you want to know more about the Maple Syrup Mafia, there's great documentaries about it on YouTube. There's a great documentary about it on Netflix. It's a crazy story. And it really did happen. And fuck the cartel. And fuck Canadian maple syrup now. Did you know that Canadian maple syrup, you're late? Dude, you're walking into a weird stream to be late to. Did you know that Canadian maple syrup is almost entirely controlled by this cartel that's forcing family farms out of business, that's posting armed guards in their farms to watch over them and surveil them, that's taking all of their product, taking a cut off the top? It's total bullshit. So what I learned today, what I learned personally, is I'm going to buy Vermont maple syrup now. Because fuck those guys. America, dude. For real. That's just how I feel. That is just my feelings about the matter. You should feel free to have your own feelings about it. Okay?
Conspiracy theories are entering a dangerous
Information is the oxygen of the democracy.
There's so much evidence out there that even if less than 1%